Hello, everyone.
New graphics, new sound. Woo! Made like 30 minutes before we went live. All right. Well, today we have Kathy. Kathy, you're normally one of our friends in chat.
Yes.
And I hounded you to have your stories finally for your where you work. Because you have some interesting stories. And I'm like, Emily, I bet, if we could get into where Kathy works, the fun things we would have.
Oh, you know what? There's two places that will definitely be a no. But the warehouse where the majority of the stuff happened, I won't make any promises, but I can actually talk to the plant manager, and it's a possibility.
Okay. I like the sound of that.
A possibility. It would probably only be like maybe a few of us, like maybe, the three of us or something. But, I don't think he would let us do a lot of people. But yeah, it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, we could stream it.
I was going to say, how is Wi-Fi in there? Cell service.
I never had a problem with it.
Okay.
So, I never had a problem with losing service or anything in there. So it's a possibility. I can talk to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like local haunted places that we don't have to drive 6 hours to.
Yeah.
Same.
Definitely out of the question. And the other place where I saw that orb is definitely out of the question. But yeah, this other place is a possibility.
So you had what, 2 or 3 stories?
That I sent you?
Yeah, either that or it was more in depth, like on top of one another. But I know you did say that there was one that you're like, I just don't even know how to type it out, and it makes sense.
Yeah, that was at the warehouse. And I was working, bear with me because I'm probably going to be jumping all over the place with this. I was working midnights at the time. And so to give you a little backstory, this warehouse is I'm saying we, like I'm still working there. It's been years since I've been there, but we are contracted out by Ford. We bring in the parts that they use to build the trucks, sequence them into the order that they need them to be in to build the trucks, and then ship them off to the plant. So it's this big warehouse where we store all the parts, and then we have different areas where each part, and there's so dozens and dozens of parts that are being sequenced. And at the time, my job was checking in all the deliveries. So I was in the back of the warehouse. And that particular night was so slow. We had less than a handful of trucks come in that night. And outside of the receiving office, there was just an area, just like a couple picnic tables set up for the drivers to sit while they're waiting for their trucks to be unloaded. So super slow. I had nothing going on. I'm sitting at one of the picnic tables, just looking through a magazine, and one of the parts that came in, I'm sorry, I'm backtracking. It was like a giant rectangular bin, metal bin, kind of deep, and I want to say the part that was in there was like catalytic converter or something, and they're big. These are for the Super Duty trucks, so they're big, and they're kind of deep. And in order for the person who's sequencing them to get into it, on the sides of this bin, there's like this real thick, hard plastic, like a slide out, so that they can actually get into the bin, get the parts out. And when they were stored back there, when they weren't up in the sequencer cell, they were stacked in the back of the warehouse, and they were stacked 3 bins high. All right. Obviously, one on the bottom, one in the middle, one on the top. So I'm sitting there looking through my magazine, and all of a sudden I hear this crash, and I looked over, and it was one of these plastic slide outs laying on the floor. And it wasn't like it was bowed. It wasn't rocking back and forth, but it was just kind of vibrating still from landing on the floor. So I get up and I go over there, and I tried so hard to debunk this, to figure out what could have caused this to happen. It came out of the middle bin.
Wow.
I don't know. I mean, even like this plastic is super thick. So even if it were somehow, some way bowed, it would still have to pop out of there. It would have to pop out of the slots that were holding it in there. And being that it was the middle bin, it had to get out from underneath the top bin and
Yeah.
somehow get up from the bin below it. So I can't, to this day, I still think about it periodically, and I can't figure it out.
That's crazy.
Nothing makes sense to me.
Were
So
there
yeah.
cameras like on the floor, even if it was just for safety, to watch machinery to make sure things are moving? Like, were there cameras that you
So
could?
there were cameras, but they didn't really use them. They didn't utilize them at all. So yeah. And they weren't, when they did have to use them, the focus on them was terrible. So
They wouldn't even be able to really tell what happened. But that is really a cool story. Holy cow.
It was pretty amazing. And it was funny because I was so confused by the whole thing to really even think about being scared of it. Like, I just immediately walked up and went over there. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? You know?
Yeah.
And I'm sure whoever did that was like, okay, that didn't work.
If it was someone who worked there before, if it was someone who worked there before, they're like, I know what'll really like freak them out. That's funny.
But that's the story I couldn't type out because I just, it was.
It'd be hard to explain the positioning of the boxes and all, like how they operate and all that via.
It is. I mean, I can
text.
tell you, but to actually, envision. If I get you guys in there, you'll see. I'll show you the area where it happened. But it's hard to explain it and have it make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, Richie's like, that would have grabbed my attention for sure.
It was awesome. It was awesome. That place is where all the bulk of my work experiences took place. And that was
so funny. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I had asked Marianne about it one time when she was in the store, because I was thinking that maybe there was, like a portal in there, because I had seen so many things in there. And she said that in order for there to be a portal, you have to have walls, and a warehouse is just like a big cavernous area. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But then I started thinking there's offices, small offices, and those walls were maybe built after the fact, but I don't know if that counts, but there's definitely something to that area in that building.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's so funny how most people would have an accident when something like that happens. And we're all like, that's so cool.
Immediately, I'm running towards it always. I'm like, I want to know. I want to experience it. But yeah, that was crazy. It was.
Oh, that's awesome, though.
Yeah.
Just making sure I didn't miss any more little chats about it. Hello, everybody coming in. We have Kathy with us. She's got a few stories from her days of working in different automotive plants and things that happen. Because you would always think, right, an automotive plant, who's going to haunt a plant? But
well, the one story that I sent you, it's so funny, and this is over at Ford in Avon Lake. So many people have seen this guy. And it's funny because the people who don't know the difference between the energies, between an earthbound or a visitation or residual energy, if they don't know the difference between that, everything is just a ghost and it's to be feared, Mm-hmm. So this is just a classic case of residual energy. And they all say the same thing. They all see this man in a plaid shirt carrying a lunchbox walking to the door like he's, at the end of his shift. That's what they all see. And they're like, oh, this place is haunted. I'm like, it's not a ghost. oh no, yeah, you haven't seen it. That's a ghost. I'm like, no, it's just, and it's residual energy. It's something that
Right.
he every single day of his life for 30, 40 years that he left an imprint. That's all it is. And yeah, people freak out about that. It's so funny.
Yeah, and they don't understand. It's like he's doing the same thing every
Yeah.
time. If you think it was an intelligent haunting, right, he wouldn't be just doing the same thing over and over. So
Exactly.
he
He's
just
not-
left that imprint.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he's not interact with anybody. He's just going home.
Yeah,
know?
but he's like,
Yeah.
all right, done for the day.
I'm out. Like, have people tried to interact and it just doesn't like respond?
So the people that I've talked to about it, I don't think they have tried to interact. I think they just see it and they freak out and bolt. You know, it's funny.
Yeah, it'd probably be us three would be the only ones that are like, hey, buddy, like, what's going on?
Where are you going? What'd you have
Yeah.
next?
What else you got? Where else you going? Yeah.
Oh,
And
that's
then
funny.
I would be that person when the newbie came in, you know, I would purposely make the newbie. It would be like a indoctrination, like exposing the newbie to the ghost. Like, can
Yeah,
you
I would
hang
love
with
that.
us, or is that going to be a problem?
Love that. I'm the one who wants to go sit in the room by myself and, you know, just ask questions and, you know, see, not antagonize, but just ask questions and see if I can get responses. And, you know, yeah,
100%.
yeah, I totally love that.
I'm the same way, even with like energies that do feel a little bit scarier. I mean, I'm so like that. Like we talk about it a lot, but even at the Grafton school, there were a couple rooms that a lot of people were like, I am not going in there. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to grab some candy. Like, leave this little guy some candy. I'm going to go in there.
I'll on a chair and I'll go sit in there.
Hey, I brought you lunch today, bud. Like, here you go, you know? So, yeah, like, I'm going to make friends for sure.
Yep. I love that.
Right, Karen? She's like, same old stuff, different day. The go home.
Yeah.
I always wonder though, it's so interesting on things like that. Like obviously it's always seeing him leave.
Yeah.
But like
His favorite part of the day. I'm just kidding.
well, true. And I was like, what about the coming in? You know, like I always wondered what makes those parts of the imprints be the things that stick.
I think that coming in, his energy is probably so low. He doesn't want to be there. You know, it's just like, God, here we go again. Let's just get this done and over with. But when he's leaving, his energy is up. He's like, woohoo, the day is done. I get to get out of here. And
yeah, it's 5 o'clock. I'm gonna go to the watering hole.
Yep.
That's funny.
I think that probably the energy that the person is feeling at the time is probably what
Makes the imprint.
makes it stick, you know?
That makes sense. I'm gonna be a haunting goddess. Like you're gonna see me locking the doors and walking out every day.
And then you'll see her come back in and go, my
Yep.
keys.
I
And
lost
then
my
you'll-
phone.
Got them. And then go back
Yeah,
out.
100%.
That's hilarious. No.
Yeah, Richie said you went into that room, Emily, in Grafton, that scared him.
Yep, I have no self-preservation at all. I'm like, if this is how I go, it's how I go. Like, I'll be fine.
They're people though. I mean, they're just in a different form. They're
Exactly.
just, you know.
I think my only issue is sometimes I make too good of friends. Like I said, like after Grafton, Maria said there the old man was kind of hanging outside the doors of the store, like, because there was a little boy there that the majority had picked up on, and then there was an older man that me and Richie and Larry had picked up on, and I said I think that he was somehow like a caretaker or janitor of the school. And somehow him and this little boy are connected. Like maybe they were ostracized in the school, you know, and they kind of made some sort of bond over that. But most of them were talking to this little boy, but I was speaking out loud to this old man. And so I went to Grafton and then ran to the store after. And I walk in the door and Maria goes, Emily, she goes, if you're going to start doing the mediumship, you need to tell them, I don't want to make any new friends. I said, I did make a friend while I was there. She goes, yeah, well, he's curious and he's looking inside the shop doors right now, like, what's going on? So I was like, hey, really nice to meet you, but you gotta go. Like, you can't come home with me. Don't lurk outside of there until I get in my car. Like,
he's
yeah, so
happy that somebody finally acknowledged him.
I think, and that's like totally what I felt too. So, you know, I talked to him for a second and was like, okay, nice to meet you. You know, I'll come back. But the reason he was outside the doors is because the store is warded. You know, Marianne took care of the store, so he can't get in. You know, of course, when mediums do readings for loved ones and stuff, it's different. But as far as earthbounds, like, he couldn't get in. So that's kind of why he was hanging out, like, what's going on? I did feel kind of bad, but I learned my lesson.
I think there are a lot of creatures that show up at that store, because I know I've seen somebody walking, like, pacing the windows out there.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
We hear knocking too. Even yesterday, you know, me, Sierra, and Melissa, and then we keep looking over, like someone's opening the door. But you just hear just clunking. And so I don't think that it's earthbounds. I think it's fae, because from what I understand, the quinceads don't protect against that, right? Because sometimes it is inside. I mean, there was a time me and Melissa, it was the one day too, it was consistent. It was just me and you. I don't know if you remember this, but we were like standing talking. All of a sudden, you're like, like dominoes. And all of the Nightmare Before Christmas figurines just like toppled over. We weren't even over there, you know, like we were not even over there. We just hear something fall over and it's like, okay, like, especially when you're on your own.
I yell at them because
so many things. We leave you smarties, like, cut it out.
Melissa, where were you sitting what video were you doing the other day when I told you that I saw a shadow kind of float behind you? I think you were at the store. You had like that picture.
I was sitting in the healer room.
Oh, okay.
Because I had to do the live, and then like literally, you know, at 11, the jewelry vendor was there. So it was kind of one of those like hard end for me, bring in vendor, move the laptop to the side, start doing, you know.
Because it was right before you got off that I saw it.
That's so interesting.
In one of the healer rooms, that would make sense, because there's got to be a ton of energy in those rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So. And like sometimes too, you could be picking up on, you know, because this is the other thing that I've kind of noticed, which I don't know if you guys agree, but like just because, and I'm sure you understand this too, but like just because you see a shadow figure or a shadow doesn't necessarily mean it's like a shadow person. So those are like, you know, because I hear a lot of people say that, but it's like takes a lot of energy to like fully manifest yourself, right? So a lot of the time it just like, I think I might have mentioned this on a video before, but I really liked the Psychic Kids show, and in the one is actually Chip Coffey, who I like love. But the kid was getting so scared by this shadow that was by his bed every single night, and he was like, it stands over me, I get so scared, and blah 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 blah. So Chip kind of helped him develop. He goes, ask him who he is, ask him to show himself. So he did it, and he goes, it was his grandpa the whole time, just like saying goodnight. You know what I mean? But because he couldn't fully see, he was scared. Once he realized who it was, he was like, hey, I love that you're saying goodnight, but like, could you not do it at midnight? Or you know what I mean? Like, and that's how it is for spirits for me, even, or like my ancestors. It's like, great grandma would love to talk to you. Can you not shout my name in the middle of the night? Like,
yes, that is one of the you know, if it comes down to talking about scary things, I think that scares me more than anything, when you just hear your name shouted out of nowhere and you're like, oh my god, where did that come from?
And a lot of it is just or the startle response. You know, you just freak out because you're like not used to it. And for me, it's like in the middle of the night, you know. And what I noticed too, so I don't drink like very often, okay, like very often at all. And when I do, Yeah, Richie says exactly. Shadows aren't always bad. Chip is amazing. He sure
Yep.
is. I know you like him a lot too, Richie. So, but I noticed like, so when I drink, even if it's just like 2 glasses of wine, whatever it is, like turns off this filter that I have. It's like I'm trying to go out for my birthday, right? Ash and Nick are there. And I'm turning over like, so when you were a child, then blah, 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 in the middle of this bar, like it's like no awareness of where I'm at or anything. And I just start medium.
Okay, cut her off. She's done.
Exactly. And that's what they know. They're like, all right, like there she goes again. Or we went to Sierra's again. I had, maybe 2 drinks. I don't drink very much. We're sitting there talking and I look over. I'm like, do you ever see a shadow in the left corner of your bedroom? She's like, yes. She goes, my light keeps turning on and off. I said, this was the owner who lived here before. And it was like, I get these details that I wouldn't really get. Now, I'm not telling anybody that they should drink in order to get better at mediumship. I want to be really clear on that. But I've just learned, like, it's just funny how in certain circumstances, so just like when you're asleep, this is where I was going with this whole tangent, but when you're asleep, you're not like protecting yourself as much, right? Like you're not being as logical, you're not filtering things as much because you're just receiving information. You're in like that hypnagogic state. So it makes sense that just in like a different state, you get a lot more info, right? So
Yep.
Is that when it happens the most for you? Is kind of close to bedtime, or is it whenever?
I think whenever my guard is down. So if I'm very relaxed, so yeah, going to bed, or if I'm, reading or, something like that, if I'm not, if my guard is down and all of a sudden something like that happens. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah. I just was curious, and anybody who's listening, if you could say.
Yes. Share. Yes.
And I was going to ask you, Kathy, have you had anybody from your factory jobs follow you home? Because obviously they can follow you.
They can. Yeah. I have not. I was kind of worried about it. The very first one I saw in that warehouse, I was kind of worried about him because it was funny how that played out, because I saw his legs first, and I'm like, okay, I at some point I'm going to have to see what these are attached to, and then I kept going about my work, and I turned around and there he was, full, not inside my workspace, but kind of outside. And he just had this smile on his face, not like creepy or anything. I think he knew that I could see him, and he was just happy that I was actually able to see him. And I'm like,
aww.
Okay, I don't want this guy coming home with me. I know he's happy that he's being acknowledged, but no, I have not had that happen. So I tend to kind of protect myself before I leave my house. And I just hope for the best at that point, hope that it's enough. And, so yeah.
I mean, I would think maybe, your profession, out of the 3 of us, yours would be the one where they would follow you home more, right? The camaraderie, almost like the union goes home.
Right. Yeah. The people that I saw in that warehouse, only one of them was actually working, doing a job. The rest of them just kind of showed up. And that was something else that made me wonder about a portal, because none of them had anything to do with being, they had no business being in that warehouse at all. Like that guy that I just talked about, he was wearing, do you remember the show? Oh shoot, what's it called? The one with Mr. Roper and Chrissy and, what was it called? Three's Company. Okay. So it was like this plaid leisure suit that he was wearing. He looked like something right out of the 70s. Just bizarre, the people that I've seen had nothing to do with that. The only one I saw, now it's a small warehouse. There were less than 100 people in there, and sitting on the union structure at the time, I knew everybody in there. So I was walking towards the back, and I saw a forklift go by, And it was a woman with a long blonde ponytail wearing a baseball cap. It was like her ponytail was coming out of the, that hole in the back of the cap. And she had safety glasses on and just driving by towards the one end of the building. And I thought, okay. And I went about my business. And I'm like, wait a minute. We have absolutely nobody in this building that looks like that. There is no female who has a long blonde ponytail. She had lipstick on. I mean, there was nobody. And I'm like, so I turned around to go back to see who it actually was. And it's this guy in his 50s. He's bald. He has like the fringe going around the side of his head. I'm like, okay, so she's playing games. She's a comedian here. She's putting in her, what's that word where you I don't know. She like put herself.
Oh, projected herself. Okay.
So
I have a question
made me laugh.
for you, Kathy, because I just pictured this in my head when you mentioned like portal. Is there like a break room in that warehouse where there would have been like a coffee machine and like a microwave on top of cabinets, and there's left corner?
Yeah.
So it was like white cabinets, like white and then like wood on the bottom, and it was like the corner of that room.
Okay.
That's where I think it is. Because it just popped into my head, so I thought I might as well say it.
So that would have been the break room back in the receiving area in the back of the warehouse. And that would actually make sense because everything that almost everything. There was one that happened farther up front, but most everything that happened was in the back part of that warehouse.
Yeah, so, that's where I think it is. That's so interesting.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Okay. If we end up getting in there, I'll poke in that room.
Definitely. Yeah, because that would be the same area where I was sitting when that plastic wall fell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Okay.
Very, very cool. Yeah, awesome. I would love to hear too. Other people, if you have any work paranormal experiences, I'd love to hear them. I know, like, for me and Melissa, it's not, it's of course still interesting, but it's not as like out of the blue, considering it's kind of our wheelhouse. Yeah. That's super cool though.
Now, while we wait to see if any stories come up, Kathy had shared with us probably about 2 years ago now, I think we decided before we went live on the pictures from Kipton.
Yeah.
So about 2 summers ago.
Right. Yeah.
A ghost walk out there by where my house is. And if you're local and if you went out to the Marianne Walk, you will probably recognize these buildings. And we're going to show these pictures to Marianne on this coming Sunday because she's going to be there. And I'm going to ask her when there's nobody around later, be like, so what's really going on here? So this is the first picture of the silos, right? There is nothing in town that makes those blue lights. And I was just out there Monday dropping off light fixtures to my tenant because somebody was like, hey, could you use these? I'm like, oh, let's go find out. I'll drive them out and drop them off. And, just kind of looking around, seeing what has changed. Nothing changes in this town. And and I'm like, yeah, there's still nothing. Those are the tallest buildings in town. So it's not like there's anything tall across the way. Somebody like shooting a movie from their 3rd floor window. Like that's not happening. So, well,
in that picture in particular, they're just so patchy. Like look at the silo. There's that break in between the lights.
That's so interesting. Looks like somebody's doing experiments in there.
Yeah,
like in the Recess movie. I don't know if anyone's ever seen that.
Right, Chair. They're bright. They're bright. Now, Kathy, do you remember how many people were kind of out there with you?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There were probably less than a dozen of us.
Okay. And you were the only one to get these pictures with this blue, right?
With the blue. Everybody else, there are a lot of pictures taken of those buildings. But as far as I know, I'm the only one who has that blue light on them.
And then what I find interesting, I don't know if you remember in what order these pictures were. But the second one you gave, the light has, at least in the sequence, comes down, and that light is reflecting off of that gentleman's shirt. His shirt is
Yeah.
not that color.
Right.
So that means the light would have to be coming from behind you, but there's nothing in town that puts that off. And if it had been a cop car going by with blue lights, you would also see like red or, blue or whatever
Yep.
going too, because of how those lights strobe.
Right.
So
That's
my
so
joke is
interesting.
the aliens coming down, because that is Greg in the picture. So the aliens were coming down to get Greg.
Yes. We want to get
Right.
a closer look at this guy.
Yeah.
Beam me up.
Right. So, and it looks like, in my non-professional opinion, that the lights would have also shifted, because it's no longer also on the front of the building. It's all on the side now and on the back of the person walking.
Right.
So I'm going to show these to Marianne and see what she says. Now, you'll be there in the building, right? Karen agrees, maybe UFO.
Yeah.
For a Reiki share. So
Yeah.
hopefully we can be like, Marianne, what's really going on here? What is causing the white upsweeping arc in the first pic? Let's pull that one back up.
Yeah.
In the top right, I have a light like right in my face, so it's
Oh, I see what you mean. There's
Oh,
like,
Yeah. Off to the right of the silo.
yeah, that's cool. I don't know what that would be. I really don't.
Yeah.
and in a way, in this picture, the way that blue fluctuates. Remember, I think it was called the Rainforest Cafe, if you've ever been to one, where it's all tropical, and they used to have like the lights dancing on the walls to make it look
Mhm.
watery. Like, that's what it kind of looks like.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, none of the neighbors in that town have that kind of technology in their yard. So there is no light show display going on
No.
there. So this is a one-off chair. I have never seen that in all the years of living there. Like my grandparents, when you're looking at this picture, if you were go to the right down this little road is where my grandparents' house is and was. That is now my parents' house. So I've been coming and going from this town since
And
the 80s.
the house that you lived in was almost directly across the street from that. So you would have
Yeah.
you had multiple opportunities to see
Mhm.
something like that.
I mean, there is a nice size playground, like in the grassy area where you were
It's
standing.
all
kind of.
open. Yep.
So, I mean, and now the bike path, which is what used to be the railroad where the wreck happened. So people are on this all the time. And more so in more recent years than back in the 80s. But they used to use that park area for what they call the Pioneer Days. And they would bring out like a mini like circus or carnival for like a week, and have costume contests and Ferris wheels, and mom would sell all of her fudge and everything up there. So as far as I have seen or heard, like nobody has seen weird lights like this. Now those buildings are the ones, when I woke up hearing that retching metal sound, I thought it was these buildings, and there's a silo across that street even taller. I thought it was these buildings coming down, and the tall one was actually going to fall into the house.
Oh, wow.
And when I looked out the window, I'm like, nope, everything is perfectly still and quiet. But there were no lights on the buildings.
Wow.
One of the things too that I like think about is like, how often do people actually investigate that area? How often do you have that many sensitives or psychics or mediums in that area? Like, could it have been the reason nobody saw it before is because they kind of wanted to make themselves known? You know what I'm saying? That's like, now's my time. Let me make an impression.
Yeah. Again, my understanding is just who we have been bringing out.
Okay,
So,
cool.
If anybody else has ever picked up anything, it's probably somebody on like a little neighbor who's like, I don't see a thing. If I don't acknowledge it, it's not there. Right, Katie's just like, no records, very suspicious.
I would love to go back there in the daytime because that bridge across the street, like if you're looking at this picture and you're going right, it'll take you across the street. And is that like a Metro Parks over there?
It is now, yeah. Lorain County
there's
Metro Parks.
there's this bridge that goes above it's like a little valley or something down in this wood in this forest, like a wooded area. And the energy on that bridge is so intense, and it's not a bad energy. It's just I almost want to give it a Native American kind of feel to it. And it's so strong, and I would love to go back there during the daytime and see if it still feels the same as it did that night.
Mhm.
It was a really cool feeling. And
Well,
I'd like to see.
because it's a metro park right through there.
Yeah.
And the whole bike path is considered Lorain County Metro Park.
Okay.
You can go whenever you want out there.
Yeah.
I think the only like rule is like park closes. I think the sign says an hour before sunset or something like that.
Dusk or something like that. Probably.
Yeah. But I
Yeah.
mean, when I lived there, like we would go walking all hours of the night up and down. And did anybody ever come check? No.
Right.
So
Yeah.
when my son was still into doing all of this, he's like, when are we going to ghost hunt again on the bike path? And I'm like, go right now. We live here. Go.
Yeah.
Go amuse yourself. Go have fun.
So funny.
Don't fall off the bridge. But yeah, you can go out there whenever you have free time, Kathy.
Yeah.
If you want to go by yourself, if you want friends and just coordinate. But yeah, you are welcome. Anybody's welcome to go out there during the day.
Okay.
On nice days, depending on the time, I find this to be more in like early mornings up until about 11. There are a lot of bicyclists.
Oh yeah.
So if you're lost in thought, not saying like I would or wouldn't be, or really in a podcast and all of a sudden you hear, passing on the left, and even though they're not yelling it because it's coming out of nowhere and you didn't hear that bike, you about jump through the tree. But that's the only like danger is, watch out for the bicyclists. But
Gotcha.
they are pretty courteous, and they warn you as they're coming up that they're coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's nothing in town that causes those lights. So
cool.
Hoping Marianne, like in person, seeing them. And sometimes I get more in-depth answers when it's just her and I in person versus like when we were live and be like, what's really going on?
Right.
Like, are those lights why that house would not sell? Like,
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna ask too, is if it is right by the house that you own.
mhm.
From what I understand, that was very haunted too, right? So
Yeah, that whole
yeah.
little town. I probably have the only non-haunted house, though the garage is still problematic for the tenants. She has to park the lawnmower in the neighbor's garage because for some reason the ghosts or fae or whatever don't mess with it in the other person's garage for some stupid reason. I'm like, now they're just effing with you to be a jerk
Yeah.
at this point.
That's so funny.
But the town is one of those old-fashioned, quiet, we were the young people other than the kids. And,
It's Mayberry.
it's very it's conducive if you want to sit outside and like get to connect to nature around you, because it is so slow moving. Like it's one of them little towns. You can sit on your porch and really be able to connect with what's around you. So I'm sure on top of whatever ghosts and everything else, you have your elementals and your fae running around.
Oh yeah.
So take your pick of what could be in your house, causing problems. But Kathy, did you have any other factory stories?
So, well, that orb that I saw, that was at a different company. And it was like a polymer. They make polymers and stuff there. Is this one of the stories I sent you about the orb? So we had to, I worked in their cafeteria. I worked for this company that did like vending and cafeteria work. And we ran their cafeteria at this company. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, we had to do something called a coffee run, where we had to go to various parts of the building, and then they had other smaller buildings that were part of this company. So we had to go around and get coffee started in all these areas for the employees, so it was all ready by the time they got in. And this one building that I went to, the way you had to get in, you had to use a key card, and this building had like a 2-part entrance. You had to get into the first set of doors. There's a little foyer, and then you had to get into the second set of doors that get you into the building. And just to the left was their break room. So I got into the building, and the break room door, which normally always stayed open, was closed for some reason that morning. And as I reached for the door and started to open it, this bright orb came flying out of the top, through the 2 sets of glass doors, and out into the night, into the dark. And that's the only time I've ever actually seen an orb with my eyes. You know, in real life, you always see them in pictures, but I had never actually seen one myself. And it was, to this day, one of the coolest things I have ever experienced.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, did you feel like a sensation as it came anywhere?
Not at all. There was no feeling. There was nothing like that. It was just, it was a total visual, and it was just a bright kind of white light. It might have had like a little bluish hue, like around the edges of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember everything I saw, but it was just it, and it was so fast. Right out. Yeah. It was so cool. It was so cool.
The orbs are interesting too, because it's like, are they just not manifesting fully? Like, you know, what's going on with that? Like,
yeah,
very cool.
And it's funny because that's one of those things that I have heard people say, that you don't see them with your eyes. It's not possible to see them. And like, well, yeah, it is. I don't see them on a regular, but I saw that one, and it was pretty amazing.
Henry has actually, he was probably only maybe 1.5, 2, so he wasn't speaking very much. And we used to go to my friend's house, and we'd like put him to bed there, you know, so we could hang out a little longer, because he was still young enough that we could just pick him up and put him in his car seat, you know, once he was asleep. So we were in my friend's bedroom, and we were putting him down in his like pack and play, and he just starts laughing, like belly laugh, and pointing at the ceiling, and he's going, blue ball of light, laughing. I was like, what do you mean, where? And he's pointing in the same spot, and he's little, so there's no reason, he doesn't even know to like make this stuff up yet, you know what I mean? So he's laughing about it, and then he goes, oh, a pink one, and said a pink ball of light was right by it. So my friend, I'd asked her, and she said her aunt and uncle passed in the house and loved children, and so I think it was them just like entertaining him, to be honest. But he really, like, he saw it, and this went on for like 2 minutes, you know, and I'm laughing, I'm like, this is so cool, and Brandon's next to me like he's so scared, because he does not like this stuff at all. Like, you know, he'll listen to me talk about it, but he does not want to experience it the way that I do. So like, get ready, because you've got a kid with all these Scorpio placements. It's going to happen. You just get used to it now. Okay.
That is,
and I was right, because it's only gotten more intense. So
yeah, that is so cool.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Now, Kathy, just to clarify, did you find that your sensitivity to seeing things, experiencing things increased when you were starting to learn like Reiki and those type of things? Did it help open you up a little more, or?
So, excuse me. I feel like since I went through Hank and Nanette's class, I feel like I don't even I don't even know how to word this. I don't necessarily feel like my energy has intensified. I feel like I always had that connection to the energy, but I
Mhm.
feel like I know more of how to use it, of how to expand it,
Okay.
expand my own energy, as opposed to just feeling other energies coming to me. I feel like I'm more in control of how to expand my own.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I I'm not even sure what the question was anymore, but I say yes.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I mean, I've heard people say similar to what you've said, and then others who like never experienced a thing, but then they start on a spiritual journey, start learning Reiki or other healing or psychic, and all of a sudden, like now,
So it's funny because I tell people when they talk about energies and stuff like that, and there are people who will just talk about it in general, but not having actually experienced what that energy feels like, you know?
Mhm.
Um, and I tell people, like, if you go back to when you were a kid, most every kid in this world has done this. When you were a kid and you would hold your hands together and you would feel that you know, like the magnets when you try to put them together and they resist, you feel that resistance, you
Mhm.
know, and the heat. And they're like, oh my God, I used to do that all the time. I said, that's your energy, that you're actually feeling your own energy. That's what that is. And
Mhm.
so learning to focus on that and um, kind of play around with it, you can start to use it for, you know, other things. And that's where the Reiki training comes in, and you learn to focus your own energy more, instead of just not necessarily feeling other energies around you or coming to you. You can actually learn to use your own for
Mhm.
certain things. So yeah.
That totally makes sense. And it's kind of reminds me of like when I was learning Reiki, they had us do this one exercise where we'd pair up and you would go behind the other person and start like pushing and pulling, and the
Oh yeah.
person in front of you would start moving without even really realizing they're doing it, because they're actually feeling you like push that energy out. So
Yeah.
it's like very similar. That's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I can feel when I'm using my hands, and it doesn't matter if I'm working with a person or if I'm holding a crystal or whatever it is I'm you know holding or using my hands on at the time. I can literally feel the energy coming out of my hands. It feels like a pulsing kind of,
Hmm.
and it's so cool. It's, you know, and if you've never felt that, it's hard to, I can't, the only word I can come up with is like a pulsing, you know, like the
Yeah.
energy
And
kind of
and when
flowing
you
through that.
receive it too, you feel that, right? So when you're and I'm sure you've experienced this where you're working on a client and they tell you that they feel that energy pulsing, and that's so cool that two people
Yeah.
experience
Or
it,
they feel heat coming off of your
Yeah.
hands. Yeah.
Mhm.
I get that a lot. God, you have the
Mhm.
hottest hand. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And even when you're not doing Reiki, cuz so I'm attuned too, and they tell me the same thing, like I'll be, rubbing Brandon's back or something. He goes, "Are you raking me?" He's like, "I feel." He's like, "It feels like something else other than just like what you're doing."
Well, and it's funny because you don't even have to be intentionally performing Reiki on somebody. It
Uh-huh.
just happens. That energy
Yep.
flow is natural.
Yep.
So it
Like
just
Henry's
gets
sick.
through.
I'm touching
Yep.
his forehead to feel his temperature, and it's funny because it's like you're just the conduit. So
Yeah.
spirit or source or Reiki, right? So the source energy just decides now's the
Yep.
time. Like
Yeah.
that's very cool.
So, Chair asked, are all kids born receptive to spirits? And if they are, is there a way to retain that ability as they grow? I think most are. There's going to be, just like in any ability of anything, art, music, like we all can sing, just how well, everybody can draw, but my stick figure compared to, somebody's masterpiece, like, so, but if there is any sort of just It really kind of comes down, I think, to the parents not constantly going, stop it, there's nothing there. Like, it's usually the parents that kind of start that shutdown. That's just an
100%.
imaginary friend. There's nobody there. Stop make believing.
Yep.
And so that door kind of closes. So,
Yep.
you know,
And then the older that the older they get and the more involved in life they get, they start going to school and interacting with other people, and that's when you start becoming jaded by the world, you know.
yeah. And that's where I think too, especially for women, or it could even be dads, right? Parents. You get older in life, the kids move out, things start slowing down, you get closer to retirement. Now you're only just the grandparents. So the babies come over, then they leave. The awakening starts kind of happening again, right? Because there's less life around you to kind of distract. You can't blame the weird noises in the house on the kids running amok anymore, or the spouse being home because maybe they're off fishing or they're off at the craft store. So you can't, you know, so you start paying attention again. And I think there's something to be said, right? It's almost like we are born wrinkled and crying and, you know, and we kind of go back to that just in a bigger form. So our hormones playing a part of it as the body's shifting is, you know, who knows, theories. But, you know, Chair, if you ever have kids and they are showing, you know, some ability, like, I think Marianne even talked about, like, don't immediately shut it down, but also don't constantly ask them, like, well, are you picking up anything? Because then they feel the need to make up stories now to please you.
Yeah.
Just leaving the door open that it's safe for them to come talk to you about it.
Yes.
You know, as needed. And like Emily, you're not closing down Henry. You let Henry talk about it.
Yeah, I let him tell me. I'm just kind of, it's such a hard balance though, because I don't, when he's telling me, you know, the nightmares are surrounding my bed, I don't want to be like, yeah, those are ghosts around your bed, dude. I don't know, like, you know what I mean? I don't want to freak him out. So I kind of will just not say if it's real or not. I will say, like, if he says he sees something, I say, okay, well, you're the strongest thing in the room and this is your room. And if you want to be alone or if you want to feel safe, you just say, I want to be alone. And I said, and come get me if that doesn't work. That's kind of like where I'm at. So, but I like what you said, where you said how everybody can draw, because that is an analogy I use all the time. Because they're like, do you have to be born a medium or do you have to be born psychic or can you develop that? Well, some of us are born and we have this, we're, you know, musically inclined just to begin with, you know, like I'm excellent, not me specifically, I'm terrible, but like somebody might be excellent at it and just they're kind of like, what is it, a prodigy, right? They're just always good at it. They don't have to try very hard. It comes naturally to them. Where other people, they can become a very, very good musician, but it takes a lot of practice and skill building and classes and workshops and, you know, and neither one of those I think is more valid than the other. I think a lot of people can sometimes feel less than if they haven't been having, you know, crazy experiences since they were born, or if they're not a 5th generation psychic medium or whatever it is. And not to discount anybody who's naturally psychic, but to me, I think it's really impressive too. Somebody like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to hone this skill in. I'm going to put so much effort into it, you know? And I think those people have a little bit of like an appreciation for it too, because they did have to try so hard in order to connect in that way. Whereas like sometimes maybe you don't appreciate that you're excellent at the guitar because you've always been good at the guitar, you know, where somebody who works 10 years to practice, that feels like more of an accomplishment to them. So, but I think anybody's able to do that. Otherwise we wouldn't have classes for development. We wouldn't have development circle and we wouldn't have, you know, I also think too, not to like go off on a tangent, but I've said this before in the story, maybe on here too, but like, I think our sixth sense and our psychic abilities was kind of our main way of processing the world way back when, because you didn't have time to use that human brain. You just used my instincts. Like, I feel like something's wrong. I'm going to run. I'm trusting my gut and I'm not going to stick around to see if I'm right or not, because I'm trusting my gut. So you kind of had to operate off that sixth sense. Whereas now we're so much more just in the actual, physical world. So that's my other thought of it as well.
Somewhere along the line, we forgot who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And we took a totally different path and decided that, okay, we got here, we're living this life, but we'll take matters into our own hands now, and we'll get this. And we're trying so hard to figure things out, when in reality, it's all there. All the answers are right there. We just have to remember who we are as a collective.
And that's remember. Yep. That's the word. That is a perfect word, is remembering.
Because we all are that. We all have that power. We all have that energy, that magic in us.
Yeah.
We've gotten so, as a species, we have gotten so egotistic and so full of ourselves, and we're going to figure things out, and we're going to get the answers. And well, they're already here.
Yep. And furthermore, too, like you said about being egotistical, but also like we talked about how our lives are so much busier now. So in order to really connect, you have to slow down. You have to slow your brain down. You have to like pay attention to what's around you. Whereas now it's like everybody's always on their phone, always watching something, always listening to something, running from A, B to C. Where's your time to interpret any of it? That's why mindfulness is like so important. It's just being present on just what you're doing. With my ADHD brain, that doesn't happen very often, but getting there. So
yes, but and even when the weather is nice out, getting outside and just sitting, taking those deep breaths and calming yourself, and just sitting there and just listening and just being is so huge for so many reasons.
Like, just stop trying so hard, you already know how.
It's all right there. Yeah.
So Chris says, I agree with that, Emily. We industrialized the world and started using the thinking side of the brain. And we have to learn to get out of our own way, which I agree.
Get out of our left brain. It's a total left brain world that we live in. And we need to get.
Especially even like let's say you get information, right? Because I've been getting psychic information for years and years and years and years. I just never said anything because I thought you analyze it too much, right? You have your analytical brain, so you're like, no, I couldn't possibly know that. But if I just trusted my gut, I do,
Yeah, like Karen just was agreeing as you were saying that, like so way down in the daily grind of it all.
That's true.
So we're like a minute away from our hour. So Kathy, I don't know how busy you are, like if you are off to go do something for work, but you actually, we kind of referenced it briefly, but you have a Reiki share this weekend that we do every month.
On Sunday,
do you, and this is where I'm going to throw you under the bus. I did not warn you I was going to do this. Talking about your Reiki share, like if somebody wanted to come, what can they expect?
So I kind of leave that up to the person. If they want to do like a, full physical Reiki, they can lay down on one of the tables and we can do that. We can do where we sit at a table and just kind of let the energy flow that way. A couple people that have come in the past, we would just sit at the table and just kind of put our energy out expand our energy out into the world and, just try to heal all the wrongs that are going on. And
that's beautiful. That's collective consciousness.
I just leave that up to the individual on how they want to do things.
So if somebody is not a Reiki master, can they come and pick your brain?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
So that is today. If you are local, not today, it is this weekend.
It'll be Sunday and Saturday. We're doing Pathfinders too.
I have no concept of time lately. But yeah, so, and that was the other question I was going to ask you. You also lead a group called Pathfinders that we do first and third Saturdays.
Yeah.
And we kind of move the time to hopefully make it easier for people. So that's at 2:00 as well.
On Saturday. Yep.
What do we do there, Kathy?
We talk about anything. It's open to anybody who has experiences like this and they have nobody to talk to about it. You know, you're surrounded by people who are going to make fun of you and ridicule you and tell you that you're crazy. And we are a safe place to talk about that kind of stuff and hear other people's experiences, or just to kind of, you know, throw out different ideas and stuff like that. So it's just a safe place to talk about all this crazy stuff.
All right. So you can come meet Kathy in person, because I'm sure you've seen her name in the chats on our live. So now you can come meet her if you would like in your local. Now, Emily, you're reading in the store today.
I am.
And this evening. So I already kind of put it in the chat for Chair earlier. We're going to do our Woo Woo Wednesday readings tonight. So Emily, Brooke, and Crybaby, which I did not see him in chat. He might be sleeping in. So tonight at 7-ish, depending on technology, right? Readings on Twitch. So join us on Twitch for readings, card flipping, general fun, and shenanigans. We do it to amuse ourselves and have fun. So, but yeah, if you would like a reading with Emily, she's in store. You can see her in person or via Zoom.
Yeah.
So,
Yay.
fun times. And
Yay.
you only get me here or running around the store. That's all you get of me. And possibly if you're going to join the shamanic program, like you might have me hovering over you, whipping you and saying that you are spraying your Florida water wrong. Like Maria all the time.
Oh, that's funny.
That starts April, I think.
Yeah.
Or May. I should know.
April.
Right?
It's in April.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. We will see you next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with more spooky stuff.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you. This was fun.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.